everything around me. Green, get the money. Dollar, dollar,
Hi there,
bill, yo.
my name is Aakhu, and I'd like to thank you for signing up for this class on mastering monetization for Black entrepreneurs. I'm a marketing consultant, and it is my job to help Black businesses develop lethal marketing methods so that their profits can soar. In today's video, we're going to talk about why Black businesses don't monetize at a high level and how we can break that spell. In my hand right now, I have a copy of a book called The History of Black Business in America. It's written by Juliet Walker. It's an excellent book. Every Black business should have a copy of this. There's some really important and profound insights she makes in this book. It turns out that a lot of the problems that we have on an individual level as entrepreneurs come out of the socioeconomic context that we exist in. Having this historical background gives you some clarity about what you're doing. The first point that she mentions that is really profound is that throughout history, from, let's say, from 1600 on up to the present day, the major impediment to Black monetization or generating a lot of money from Black businesses has been racism. And this has really been undervalued and considered by many of our entrepreneurs. She says that it is actually racism, starting from a governmental level all the way down, that has prevented the rising of Black companies that can equal the size of Walmarts and Googles and Facebooks of the world. So there are no Black enterprises like that right now. And secondly, because of this racism, many Black entrepreneurs have been forced to settle for smaller market sizes, and as such, less money. What she explains in this book is that any business venture that we are undertaking should begin by analyzing the impact of racism on that business. A very rare bit of advice. Most consultants and other people in my profession will never mention that. And as a matter of fact, we tend to pretend that it doesn't exist. And then when you have inadequate results, we just blame you. What we want to do in this course, again, is to give you a lot more clarity, a lot more depth about what's happening. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging a problem, because the minute you acknowledge that problem, then you can do the work of solving that problem. Another interesting point that she mentions in the book is that our entrepreneurial efforts have always been connected to the issue of freedom. So even to this day, if you are starting an entrepreneurial venture, a part of what motivates you might be the idea of being free from having to go to somebody's job, free from having to have economic worries, freedom from not being able to have to respond to creditors in a certain kind of way. So all of that relates to freedom, and it turns out that freedom is a very holistic concept. And so for many people, let's call them conscious people, who have embarked on that journey and have acquired a certain amount of spiritual freedom by engaging other practices, or a level of political freedom ideologically, and so on and so forth, what eventually most of us come to understanding is that the economic component cannot be left out. It is too critical a component, and it is a part of the process that we must master and take responsibility for if we are truly to be free. Let's look at how that can come about. Much more compelling than the issue that most Black businesses are small enterprises, which most Black businesses are in this country and in the world for that matter. Much more compelling than that issue is an understanding of the significance of the Black consumer dollar. Very important. Within the broader context of American business history, what would be the economic and social impact on white America if more Black dollars went to Black business and Black businesses? Turns out that not very many Black dollars end up in Black businesses. And that is part of the challenge and the reason that Black businesses don't monetize very well. How is it do we get more Black people to support Black businesses? Well, the issue is simple. It means that the burden now is on the Black entrepreneur to become better marketers. This means that we have not historically been as savvy at convincing the black consumer that it is important or valuable to support black businesses. We have not been very convincing. We have not been very persuasive. And so that's a part of the issue that we must face. So let's look quickly at the state of black business as it is now. There are about 2 million black businesses in America as of 2007. 2 million black businesses generate a total of about $138 billion. Doesn't sound too bad on the surface. What's interesting is, of the 2 million businesses that black people have in America, only about 15,000 of them are million-dollar businesses that generate more than $1 million in sales per year. It's 0.75% of black business. Think about it this way: when you say $1 million business, you're not talking about $1 million in profit. You're talking about $1 million in sales. So what does the average black business look like then? It turns out that the average gross sales for those 2 million business is about $72,000 per year. Again, not profits, sales. That's average. So that means if you had a business that generated $100,000 in sales, you would be actually above about 80% of all black businesses in America. What is the difference between, let's say, an average black business and an average minority business? The average black business, 72,000. The average minority business, 179,000. Say, well, if that's what minorities are doing in comparison to black folks, which I thought were minorities, but apparently it's a lot less than minority. What would happen if you compare a non-minority business to a black business? Turns out that a non-minority business now generates about $490,000 per year, average. This means then that the non-minority business actually generates about 7 times the revenue of a black business on average. Why is that? And so one of the pointers that we said is that racism is at the seat of a lot of this. There's 2 forms of racism that we should be aware of. There is the institutionalized racism, if you will, the governmental level and all the different institutions that support and sustain the system. And then there's the subtle and more dangerous internal racism. It's the part that we as a people have within us that automatically tells us that black businesses are inferior, that they are more expensive, and basically saying they're not worth being in the competition with other businesses. And as such, other minority businesses and non-minority businesses can flood our community, take our money from our community freely, and leave black businesses in the dust. So, the question is now, how do we reposition ourselves to be in a better situation? And of course, we said earlier that it's better marketing. But what does that mean? That means that we must learn the skill of actually how to organize and orchestrate campaign-style marketing. Meaning not just the kind of promotional energy that people said, whether you put out some flyers or you send out an email or this or that, but actually structuring it scientifically. So you're testing, you're tracking, you're looking at it in the same way as a billion-dollar corporation does their marketing, only you're doing it, of course, on a shoestring budget. It can be done. It's a system known as guerrilla marketing, and we have actually taken from that system and modeled it so that African American people can use it for their benefit. Secondly, with that type of structure now, as opposed to just having to spend a lot of money on our marketing, what we can do is we invest more in time, in energy, in creativity, in better information, And because of that, we actually can enhance our competitiveness in the marketplace. We've always been a people who are good at thinking deep thoughts or thinking strategically. So we now have to use that resource to our advantage. Spend a little bit more time thinking about your strategy, testing your strategy, implementing your strategy, and adjusting your strategy so that you virtually guarantee success. And the last part of what happens when you have better marketing is that you're able now to target the black dollar in a more significant way. And more importantly, you're able to completely transform the perception of black businesses in America and to some extent, black people in the world. And this is a very important work. So as an entrepreneur, you have an obligation as you're doing your work of building your business to actually enhance the value of your community and your people simultaneously. So in conclusion, I just want you to remember that the key to us overcoming some of the obstacles that come to us and that prevent us from monetizing at a high level is better marketing. It's not wishful thinking. It's not magic. But what it is careful construction of strategic planning and execution. And with better marketing, you will have more profits. In the next video in this series, we'll talk about critical mistakes that black business people make when starting a business. This is the next level that stifles how you monetize. So tune in for that, and we'll see you then. I'm Uncle Aakhu. Have a great day.
Get the money, dollar bill.